Welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about not one, but two stories as we talk about The Coup and Silver Lining. Coup is written by Simon Geyer, and The Silver Lining is written by Colin Blake. This is two short adventures of two Doctor Who spin-offs. This was originally released as a free giveaway for Doctor Who magazine, specifically issue 351. However, there are other ways now of maintaining it. In fact, when I got this, it was a massive surprise. Well, I say massive, it's a little surprise, as I ordered another story off, I believe it was Amazon, and when it arrived, it came with this for free, which kind of gives the impression that this line of these two stories aren't that important. To which I guess, they kind of aren't important. But this is kind of like a great way to, or at least the idea is that it's a great way to dabble into the more obscure stuff of Big Finish's ranges, specifically the ones that are in the Doctor Who universe, but not actually Doctor Who itself. Each of these stories is part of a specific franchise. Silver Lining is a Bernice Summerfield story. Now, we need to talk a little bit about Bernice Summerfield in terms of my continuity, because if you've been watching my two previous stories, The Crystal Conundrum and Love and War, you would know that at those times, Bernice was actually travelling with the Seventh Doctor. Sadly, however, those two are the only stories that I have that where she is a companion. And this is actually the last time we're going to be talking about Bernice Summerfield for a while, as this is the only one I've got that's in her spin-off range, which is a bit disappointing. I should try and rectify that. She seems like such an interesting character, and she's a very important milestone to Big Finish, being the first ever character that they've adapted into audio form. Very interesting. But The Coup is something very, it's a much more interesting story in terms of what to talk about. But you see, it isn't only just part of a spin-off, it is actually the pilot episode to get people into this brand new series of audio dramas set around UNIT. Now, Nicholas Courtney features in this story as well, and he appears, I believe, in one or two of the actual series itself. But sadly, you'd be disappointed to find out that the UNIT spin-off is mainly focused on completely original characters for that series. Well, I say original. I believe that the characters originated from novels from the BBC books, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So yeah, that's basically the setup for this free little adventure thing. Now, like usually when I do like a marathon video based on an anthology serial or one that features more, I record this little segment prior to actually listen. I have actually listened to these, but in terms of re-listening to them for this video series, this is prior to blah blah blah. So we'll cut into the first story. I believe it's The Coup. The Coup is the first story. I can't quite remember. But anyway, this is the official cover it came with. As you can see, it comes in a cheap little paper casing, which is because it was a free giveaway for a magazine, and that's why it comes like this. But also I've made my own DVD cover as usual. Now, I just want to state before I show it to everybody, this was the first ever one that I actually made. This is the first one I actually made myself and printed out. And because of that, it looks extremely amateur. So I do apologise for its disgustingness of it. So that's the cover I gave. And you can see I could have easily edited out that Big Finish logo, but then we can see the text is kind of leaking at the bottom with no text on here, which kind of makes it look dreadful. The font is all wrong. There's the spine if anyone's interested, and yeah, that looks horrible. I will print out a better version, just I haven't been able to do it yet. And that is the back, featuring an older Nicholas Courtney. I believe it's from his episode from the Sarah Jane Adventures, and a promotional picture of Lisa Barrowman when she started out as Benny Summerfield. So that's really cool. And as you can tell on the back, you can clearly see that this is easily one I made myself, that I didn't like steal off the internet. So there you go. So let's kick into the first story, which I believe is The Coup. So let's see if it's any good. So The Coup, written by Simon Guerrier, feels a lot like a pilot. This is a pilot episode. It starts to kick off the adventures of Unit. In fact, the story actually ends with a trailer to the first story in the Unit saga. And because of that, and because of the short range of the adventure, it doesn't feel like a complete adventure. It feels more like a prequel to the next story, which is a kind of a shame in a sense, that it has to be organised like this. But if I realised this prior to listening to this, I would have done these marathons videos with that, connecting with that story. So that's kind of a disappointment on my behalf. But in terms of the actual story itself, we start off by hearing that there's been an attack on London Bridge, and we don't actually know at this point who the villains are, what's going on. According to some accounts, it seems like people have gone absolutely mad and they're attacking themselves, London bystanders. It's not some sort of terrorist attack. We also get a news reporter trying to get some information from one of the colonels who's asked to investigate this. And this is a reporter, I believe his name is like Mr. Curry or something like that. He basically tries to push for information. However, when they realise there's cameras and stuff around, the Colonel French, he actually kidnaps him and tries to force him to write a document. Essentially, Colonel France is the bad guy, or at least one of the bad guys in this story. We then cut into I believe it's either a taxi or a limousine with Brigadier Alistair Lethbridge Stewart. Well, he's retired at this point, and he's getting ready for a speech. What kind of speech, you may ask? It is actually a turnover for Unit to be replaced with a new organisation. And they want Brigadier, who is one of the founding members of Unit, which I don't think was ever explained. I always thought the Unit came before Brigadier, but it turns out in this story that Brigadier was actually there at the very beginning of the company, of the group. And so they asked him, even though nobody really knows who he is, and nobody's actually allowed to know publicly what Unit actually does, he is actually asked to be presenting this. I can't remember who he's with in the car, but they're talking. He's trying to work out his speech, his plan. That's basically his role in the story, until he gets attacked by two creatures which are familiar to... Actually, no, we don't know that yet. Never mind. Scratch that. They get attacked, and so the Unit delegates on their last job, basically trying to find a secure place so that the brigadier can can practice his speech. We then get introduced to the new leader of this organisation. Try to remember her name. Andrea. Her name is Andrea. And she seems to be a sinister figure. It turns out that Colonel French is working for her, and that she is trying to keep the brigadier in the dark. They, as she says at one point, he has no idea what we do here. He just thinks it's just like another form of unit that they're handing over to, like another version of unit in a sense, with a different name, not knowing that there's more sinister going on in this company. Now, as you probably have noticed, I haven't mentioned the name of this particular division. The reason why is because this new organisation, the one that's planned to take over UNIT, is called ISIS. But it's not related in any way, shape or form but to the real-life terrorist organisation with the same name. Why they've called it ISIS, I don't know. This story was released in 2004, so what's going on there? I don't know why they've named it the same as a terrorist organisation, and it does make you feel a little bit uncomfortable hearing so many characters just like talking about ISIS as if it's like a normal thing. I mean, ISIS still turn out to be the bad guys as well, but the fact that they at the moment they're represented as good guys in this, in terms of the public for the moment, is very bizarre. But however, the place in which the speech is about to take place gets under attack, actually, and people start panicking and worrying, and two soldiers of this new organisation actually try and go and defend the brigadier, or should I say Alistair Lethbridge Stewart, because he's not a brigadier anymore. And it's revealed here that he has actually had a discussion with a Silurian. It turns out these attacks that have been going on are by the Silurians, which might make it a very nice resolution to the brigadier story in Doctor Who and the Silurians, in which the brigadier nuked them all by the end of that story, not trusting them into holding their end of the bargain, and the Doctor frowns upon him. So this is kind of, in a way, a slight redemption story, as he states, it's like, it's strange, this Silurian was trying to talk to me and was trying to be friendly and saying that it wants to help us and stuff, and that's very strange, but yeah, anyway, it's time for me to do my little speech. One character I haven't mentioned, because in this story she's literally like a side character, is Colonel Emily. Now she would become the main character in the unit stories which take place after this story. But here she's literally like a small role. Now, doing my little research for this, I've discovered that she is actually a companion of the Sixth Doctor during the short trip novels, a lot bit of small novels, short stories, and a bunch of novels that the Sixth Doctor was in. So that's kind of interesting, making this her first audio appearance, and she actually becomes the main character, the main focus in the unit story. So that's kind of interesting. Not really much to talk about her there, but anyway, the brigadier goes up onto the pedestal, looking down at all of the reporters, and he starts giving off his speech. He starts off kind of weak in a sense, as he's talking about how he basically constantly mentions that, like, he can't tell who he is and what he used to do for the public, and is like, right, UNIT is now dismantling and being replaced by this new ISIS group, and the reason for this, the reasoning why we need to do this, does actually need us to reveal a little public, let the public know about some secret information that we've been keeping hiding from. And it starts off really weak and it's like, okay, we kind of get it. Until the Brigadier starts mentioning about aliens, which wasn't in the planned script. You can tell because other characters, Andrea and Colonel French, start discussing this, like, what the hell is he doing? He's not supposed to mention this. And Brigadier states that's like, yes, we used to protect the Earth from alien invasions. And he mentions a few aliens. He mentions the Cybermen, Daleks. Can't remember if he mentions the Yetis, Axons, Autons. But what he mentions is the Quarks. I don't remember a story in which the Quarks entered Earth's atmosphere at all. So there's another nice little missing story there. I would like to see if that's somewhere, if that's a Doctor Who story. That's very interesting, the Quarks coming to Earth. Would like to hear what that is all about. But he also states it's like, we used to protect the Earth from the most deadly ones, the most evil, the ones that tried to invade and conquer our planet. But there are some that are kind, who want to open negotiations. And in fact, I've recently got in contact with one such race. A race which are not even from outer space, but here on Earth. Let me introduce to you an ambassador of the Silurian Empire. And actually a Silurian appears and it's like, we want to start an alliance between Silurians and humans, until he is suddenly shot by Andrea, who states that they are evil, that they are not to be trusted, they are not in the right. And it's revealed then that the Silurians are the ones who have been they've revealed themselves near the London Bridge, where the ISIS forces started attacking them without any hesitation, without any sense of remorse or pity, and so they just opened attacks on the Silurians whilst they were trying to offer peace under a white flag, I believe they said. And so the story, and then seeing that all these reporters have seen Andrea shoot a innocent ambassador right in front of everybody, she gets arrested. We also have Colonel France get arrested as well, as it's quickly revealed that the reporter he was torturing to sign a certain document, as soon as he was freed, he actually went to UNIT, to the military force, and actually just told them everything. So that was a kind of a stupid little subplot there. And at the end of this story, UNIT is still in control, and are more now powerful as ever, as they've shown that basically they are needed not only to fight and go up against alien invasions and forces, but also make diplomatic missions to help and strengthen alliances with aliens and strange beings like the Silurians. And that's actually where our story ends, right there and then, leading into the trailer for the next story. Overall, there's not really much I can discuss my opinions on. The entire thing feels like a build-up, a first episode to a series. Now, luckily, I do have 2 of the UNIT stories, that the spin-off, the first 2 stories. Season 1 is consisted of 4 stories, which do heavily link with each other, though they can be listened to separately. And then the second season is actually a story featuring the 7th Doctor near the end of his life, a story which I don't have, in which they battle the Master, before the series got rebooted into the new UNIT adventures, in which they featured Kate Stewart, the Brigadier's daughter, and Osgood from Day of the Doctor, featuring actual unit characters from the show, people who are actually interested in. Not to say that a unit spin-off with characters that we're not familiar with cannot work, but we'll get into those when we talk about the first two unit stories. It's nice to see the Brigadier taking a last action as a main character. I would have really loved to see a spin-off where Alistair Lethbridge-Stewart is the main protagonist, but we sadly, that was never meant to be. So, yeah, the Corp, it's alright. It's easily skippable, and personally, I would even recommend skipping it to go straight into the next story, which is kind of awkward, but you don't really learn much in terms of the characters and the setup of what we need, and it feels like a setup. So, yeah, it just kind of leaves nothing to taste, really. Though it is nice to see the Brigadier working with the Silurians. It's kind of like a little redemption arc for him. And you can kind of get the feeling that so many years after those adventures, he's learned to not think hostile intentions straight away, which is kind of interesting. But apart from that, really, there's nothing really much to talk about in this story. So, the next story, Silver Lining. Let's see what happens there. Silver Lining, the second story on this CD, is the Bernie Summerfield segment. As I've stated previously, this is a single adventure. It doesn't feature the Seventh Doctor in whatsoever. In fact, this is way down the line in her own franchise, to the point where in this story she even mentions that she's a mother at this point. Very interesting. As for the story itself, it reminds me a lot of Tomb of the Cybermen, to the point where I would even consider it a sort of remake. There is a lot of a lot of its own ideas to make it more self-sustained, but it essentially follows the same general plot of Tomb of the Cybermen. So it's basically Tomb of the Cybermen, but instead of the Doctor, it's Bernice Summerfield. Very interesting, that. So the story actually starts off chronologically near the end, as she is basically trapped in a certain situation and is trying to leave a message on her device to try and communicate to her boss, Braxiatel, the Time Lord that we have actually met prior in the Gallifrey series, who is also Bernice Summerfield's boss, and is also, according to the novels, the Doctor's older brother. Yeah, I bet you didn't know that. So in this bit, she's basically explained it's like, right, this is trapped. I'm trapped. It's not like the worst living. I got these robots that make me tea and stuff, and she's enjoying herself a bit. But she has gotten herself in a little bit of trouble. I hope you can pay the expenses. And let me tell you how I got in this situation. So that leads into the story itself. It's one of those stories in like a narrative thing, even though it's only like right at the start and right at the very end. We then get to learn about the actual job that she's been hired for. Essentially, a corporation has hired her as an archaeologist to examine a particular area of this part of a planet. And they basically want to know if the inhabitants are still there, or if it's like a ruin, if it's part of a now dead society. And if that's the case, the corporation could easily just take over and come in. It's also here that we get introduced to Lytton. No, not Lytton from the 5th and 6th Doctor stories, but a completely different character. He seems to be a massive fan of Bernice Summerfield. At this point in her time, she's basically become a celebrity in archaeology. This character has all of her books and actually tries to get her to sign some of them. And Bernice kind of doesn't hate him, but kind of finds him as a liability. He's like not very well trained in stuff, and she basically is fed up of him because of He's basically one of those typical nerd characters that gets shown a lot in a lot of sci-fi stories. There's also a really funny moment in which she asks for him to point her in the right direction and she'll go by herself. But his character states that the corporation don't want that. They want him to stay with her at all times. In fact, the words they say were, "Don't let her out of your sight." And she is kind of like bummed out by this. She kind of like whispers something to herself. It's like, good grief. But then when he asks what she said, she says something like, "I'm just glad that I got someone to talk to." And this character's like, "No, there's no worry about that. Don't be afraid." So Bernice and Linton go down to this discovery they found. This massive metal door with these two panels. When Bernice starts pressing them, it seems to be a musical instrument, sort of like a piano. And she quickly works out that these devices are keys, in a sense, to try and open the door. And she tries to work out a particular pattern and gets Linton to work on the other machine to try and open the doors. And when they open inside, it's revealed that there is Cybermen. This is a Cyberman tomb. But specifically, there's something else in this. A Cyberman virus that will kill people if the virus ever gets out. It's also here that we get a little plot twist in which Linton holds a gun to Bernice. And it turns out this character is some sort of freedom fighter or something. His ideologies aren't really explained that much. But essentially he wants this virus so that he can kill his enemies or something. Like he is like the logicians from the original Tomb of the Cybermen. And he wants this virus, and he opens the Cybermen tomb to distract Bernice. And he's also stated he's been here before. He hasn't been in this room, but he's been in here before. And he's basically set up a bunch of bombs around the place. And as soon as he leaves, the bombs will go off. Or there's going to be a little bit of time, but when he's in the clear, the bombs are going to go off. And the Cyberman leader actually wakes up and grabs Bernice by the arm. And when they realise, it's like, right, we're locked in, we've got to work together, does the Cyberman let go of Bernice? And it's actually a very strange twist on the Tomb of the Cyberman story, as Bernice and the Cyberman actually work together. We do get a similar thing like that in Tomb of the Cybermen, but not to the extent where they're literally forming an alliance in this adventure. And Bernice and the Cybermen have a little discussion. Bernice is like, "I'm going to hate to regret this, but do you have any air vents in this place? Because there's no back door." The Cybermen didn't think of any logical conclusion of being stuck in this one room. So Bernice and the Cyberman go through the ventilation shafts, crawling away to try and break free, to try and get out. But when they do get out, it turns out that this Linton character they find is dead, and the Cyberman explains that that the virus kills on contact. The vial isn't containing the virus, it is the virus. The plan was to let this virus out into the atmosphere, onto all these dead planets and populations. And when humanity struggles to find a cure, they will then try and go back to the Cybermen to try and find the cure from the source, to which then the Cybermen would then convert any humans that come near them. They explain that the virus has the thing of a year. So as soon as the year is over, then the virus dissipates on its own. Very interesting stuff. And then Bernice gets saved by... Wait, I'm trying to remember what happens. I can't remember what happens to the Cybermen, or whether they blow up or something. But anyway, Bernice gets freed, and then we get back to the original part of the story, and it turns out she's actually in confinement. She's actually like under lockdown in a sense, strange with all this COVID stuff, and she's basically like isolating herself. And she states that like just she doesn't know if she's got the virus or not, but just in case, she will keep clear just for like a week or two until it's proven whether she's got the virus or not. But she enjoys the quietness, she's enjoying the company of the robots, and we'll see you soon, Braxiatel. And that's how the story ends. And then it leads into a few trailers of a bunch of Bernice Summersfield stories. One of them I'm actually really interested in, Death of the Daleks. Yeah, they've called it the same name as Death to the Daleks in the Doctor Who story, but it's very confusing in that. So, yeah, the Bernice Summerfield story is actually pretty good, I find. I actually really enjoyed it. It's a very unique take. Though, yes, it's very similar to Tomb of the Cybermen, but I do like that it's a little more different. We see Bernice teaming up with the Cyberman. It's just a little short, fun adventure, and there's a nice little twists and turns to keep it nice and interesting, and it actually works as a great free little hiccup of an adventure for anybody who just wants to get a little bit more Bernice Summerfield. So I actually do recommend Silver Lining. And there you go, that's the two-part, I say 2 parts, 2 story-long CD adventures. Overall, on the complete of all, I find it really strange that these stories put together, the only thing really they have in common is that they're both spin-offs of Doctor Who, but nothing really thematically connects them, and you can clearly tell it's more promotional than it is of an actual idea to keep the story together. The unit story is a bit weak and feels like a part 1, which can only really be felt until when you listen to the other stories. But the Bernice one, being a much more self-contained adventure, I found is a lot more enjoyable, and I actually had a lot of fun with it. So there you go, that's the Corp and Silver Lining. So join me next time where we will be catching up on what the unit crew is up to, as a completely new scenario, completely new villains and everything take hold. So join me next time for the unit story, Time Heals. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-da!